Hey there, it's Lora Cheadle, and I'm trying to get a little bit of a head start on things. I revamped my talk a little bit over the holidays, and I would love to know what you think. Yes, I am reading it. The new title or the updated title is De-stigmatizing Female Sexuality. I was not sure if I should do a subtitle like De-stigmatizing Female Sexuality, the misperceptions around women and sex, but I wasn't quite sure. Anyway, here we go. Let me know what you think. Growing up, especially during my 10 years as a pom-pom dancer, if I had $1 for every time I heard or picked up on the message that I had to monitor my behavior, or else I'd be seen as a slut and would be putting myself in danger by giving boys the wrong idea. Or on the flip side, as an honor student, if I wasn't pleasing or alluring enough, I'd end up as a crazy cat lady. I could have funded my law school education. While I was mindful of these after-school special warnings, as a child of the 80s, I believed that women could do and have it all, and that as an adult, the stigma around sexuality and virtue would finally disappear. Walking into law school with my big hair and shoulder pads, I was confident that because I was smart and capable, this whole good girl, bad girl thing wouldn't matter, and that I would no longer have the extra burden of worrying that I might be giving people, men, the wrong idea. When it came time for my first case as a student attorney, I couldn't have been happier or more confident. I was wearing my new navy blue business suit that I had gotten for Christmas. My permed hair was clipped up on the sides and tied together down low with a conservative black scrunchie a la Elaine from Seinfeld. And I had done some killer research. I was, as they say, so on fire that I won my case via summary judgment in the first 5 minutes. I had done exactly what I was supposed to do as an attorney. And when the judge called me into his chambers, I was certain that I would be lauded for my performance and my future potential. I'd be encouraged to go forth and make my mark. But the judge said nothing of my performance or my potential. He talked about my appearance. Specifically, he criticized my legs, too nice, my smile, too much, and my hair. Had I considered wearing it up? Mortified, I walked away feeling incapable, devalued as a person, and like I had done something wrong. It took me almost 25 years to realize what had happened that day, to understand that I hadn't done anything wrong, and that in that moment, I was not being seen or evaluated for the results I produced, the skills I had, or even for my desire to create justice in the world. Instead, I was being evaluated by a judge based on his perception of my sexuality. Do you know what's even worse than that? The way I believed him. As a society, collectively and individually, we judge women based on our interpretation of their sexuality and what they must be capable of because of it, instead of on the merits. Have we made a lot of progress? Yes. But there's less overt, yes, there is less overt discrimination against women than before. And yet the covert virgin whore dichotomy is still alive and running in the background. The virgin whore dichotomy is the belief that women are either virtuous and good or promiscuous and bad. And that as women, we must constantly manage our reputation. While beliefs around sexuality have changed since our mothers' and grandmothers' generations, the stigma around female sexuality has not. If you're not sure, look at the flurry of complaints after the J-Lo and Shakira 2020 Super Bowl halftime performance that involved pole dancing. Whether you like that show or not is irrelevant. What is relevant is how the virgin whore dichotomy led us to judge those two over 40 multi-talented moms based on our interpretation of their sexuality. It's an example of how we deem behavior and self-expression as appropriate or inappropriate based on the white, heterosexual, male gaze, of how we make decisions about women's potential, suitability, and even executive presence based on this paradigm, and how we reinforce the idea that judgment around a woman's sexuality matters. To be clear, I can only speak from my experience as a white, cisgendered, heterosexual woman. And I recognize that this is even more complicated for women who are not white, who are LGBTQIA, or who experience other forms of marginalization. So how did we get here? Let's start with the foundation of patriarchy and Puritanism. Oxford Languages defines patriarchy as a system or society of government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. While patriarchy is at the root of most oppression, it's the interplay of patriarchy and Puritanism that's important to deconstruct here. Puritanism refers to the beliefs of 16th and 17th century English Protestants, otherwise known as the Pilgrims, who believed in piety, purity, and that sex, while good, should only happen within a marriage. Even though the settling of Plymouth Rock was a long time ago, a study presented in the Journal of Experimental Psychology showed that contemporary Americans still were implicitly influenced by the traditional Puritan values when it came to sex. Even though, according to Gallup polls, society does become more comfortable with sex year after year, implicitly, we remain uncomfortable with women that we deem as being too sexual. The result? Stigmatized female sexuality, but not male sexuality, that perpetuates discomfort and misperception around women, sex, and ability. These socially ingrained forces put women, and those identifying as women, in a double bind with regards to authentic self-expression. We either play the game and limit ourselves to the narrow range of behavior and dress that is deemed appropriate, or we express the full range of who we are and risk being cast as the proverbial whore who is desperately trying to get attention, or the uptight bitch who lacks executive presence. Contrary to what I originally believed, what happened to me that day in the judges' chambers was not unique. Women are shamed and judged for their sexuality all the time. It's so common that we often don't see it. It's in our language. Men are players, but women, they're hoes. We have tramp stamps. Men, tattoos. Women with children have mom bodies or are MILFs, a crude acronym for moms I'd love to. And because it's so common, too many of us, irrespective of our gender, sexual orientation, or race, are complicit in maintaining and enforcing this kind of thinking. In 1989, the US Supreme Court held the accounting firm of Price Waterhouse liable for sex discrimination against Ann Hopkins, who was denied partnership despite outperforming her male coworkers. The reason? A lack of conformity to gender stereotypes. Translation, she wasn't sexy enough. She was told she needed a course in charm school to walk, talk, and dress more femininely, to wear makeup, style her hair, and even wear jewelry. And while that case was a long time ago, women today are still judged, albeit more covertly, for their perceived sexuality, both at work and in society. A 2019 article in the Journal of Gender Studies on gender, sexting in the teenage years, noticed that it was a much bigger deal for girls who had a nude picture of them sent around than it was for boys. That same year, a study of workplace attitudes, aptly named the femme fatale effect, published in the Sex Rules Journal, found that attractive businesswomen were seen as less trustworthy and more deserving of losing their jobs than were plain women. But for men, good looks were neither an advantage nor a liability. Just last year, The Forbes article, Gender Discrimination is Still Alive and Well in the Workplace, shared the story of a female faculty member who was questioned for never having been married and denied tenure, despite being highly qualified. It's not so much that women get judged that's the problem. Everybody gets judged for something. It's the fact that women are judged based on somebody else's perception of their sexuality, not on their actual sexuality or on their merits. And that's the problem. Have you ever looked a woman up and down and thought, oh, honey, I wouldn't be wearing that if I were you? How about covered up your tattoos or buttoned up your shirt, worn glasses when you wanted to be taken seriously? What about smiled pleasantly through mansplaining or other dismissive behavior because you couldn't afford to rock the boat? You didn't want to risk losing your job. That's the problem. The path forward for women involves connecting to and showing up as a fully embodied badass who owns her virgin, her whore, and everything in between, and in supporting other women to do the same. For others, it involves recognizing our culturally ingrained stigma against female sexuality, pointing out the multitude of ways the virgin whore paradigm costs women their freedom of expression, rights, and opportunities, and to begin normalizing a full range of female self-expression. It's time for all of us to check the ways that we limit ourselves, to notice and call out when judgments are made about a woman's sexuality that have nothing to do with her skills or her abilities, and above all, to support and encourage other women to dialogue with the full range of their sexuality and to shine in their full, authentic brilliance. Imagine a world where phrases like, who are you trying to impress dressing like that? Or you're going to give people the wrong idea, were obsolete. Imagine a world where if a judge chastised a young woman for her appearance, the judge's support staff would call out the judge for his inappropriate comments. Or better yet, a world where a young woman would feel safe enough to speak up on her own behalf without repercussion, to remind the judge that her hairstyle, legs, and smile had nothing to do with her ability to practice law. Now is the time to challenge our outdated, harmful assumptions and the behaviors that proceed from them around female sexuality. I've given you the opportunity to know me today as a lawyer, a speaker, and an advocate for women. Your opinion of me probably doesn't change if I also share that I'm a coach for women recovering from betrayal, a mom of 2 amazing 20-something sons, and a wife. But does your opinion of who I am and my capabilities evolve as I tell you that in my mid-40s, I started dancing burlesque, that I have disrobed and unapologetically shared my mom body on stage? Be honest with yourself. How did your opinion of me change? What thoughts and assumptions popped into your head? That judgment is what we need to change. I'm excited to know what you think. I'm not even sure what my time is, but let me know. Thank you. Bye.